Hi, everyone. Dr. Justin Golston here once again. So, to begin our discussion, we're going to discuss how organizations should assess entering into new markets. So, one thing that we discuss often in international business is that not only should we look and assess whether or not our products or services would be a good fit within a particular country, but we also need to assess whether or not our people are ready to enter into a new market. Now, in most cases, it is a good idea, a good rule of thumb to develop partnerships, to develop relationships with organizations, with individuals in other parts of the world. Given that the global landscape is shrinking with the advancement of technology, we are also, so based on your assignments, we're also seeing that we're actually going outside of the traditional business environment and we're going into the metaverse, right? The fully immersive virtual world to do business. So as we are going to go into this immersive global world, we're going to bring in more prospects for our organization. So with that, we're going to have to collaborate with different parts, different people in different parts of the world. We're going to have to collaborate with different cultures. Okay. So because of that, there's a number of different approaches that we can use to mitigate the risk of entering into new markets. And one of those is a joint venture. So a joint venture is where we will actually partner with a foreign company to start a separate company. Um, in some countries, based on the regulation, based on the legalities of the organization, a joint venture is the only option in some parts of the world. Another approach is with a strategic partnership where if I'm based in the US and I'm looking to go into the Indian market within India, so I want to open up an office. I want to capture business in Mumbai, for example. I'm going to look at people that have knowledge of that Mumbai market, and I'm going to develop a strategic partnership in India. Okay. So another approach that we can do to enter into a global market is through a fully owned subsidiary. So that is where you as an organization are going to set up shop within this new country. So if I want to open up a new organization, if I want to open up a manufacturing facility in India, then that could be viewed as a fully owned subsidiary. Now, once again, I would look to hire people with knowledge of that particular geographical region because they understand the ways of doing business within that country. They understand the cultural norms within that organization or within that part of the world. Now, whenever I'm consulting with leaders, I always explain to them there are so many things. If you're expanding globally, there are a number of things that you can't read in a book, right? So the partnerships, the relationships you build as you go into new markets are going to be very, very, very important. And from an HR perspective, you as HR leaders have to explain that to the executives of the organization because once again, most of these leaders they come from business school. They have MBAs. They've read the peer reviewed journal articles. They've read the Harvard Business Review articles, and in some cases that's the extent of their knowledge in certain parts of the world. right? They did not go into the norms and the ways of doing business within certain geographical regions. So again, having people with experience in those regions are going to be of the utmost importance as you enter into brand new markets. So once again, because you have different cultural norms in different parts of the world, because you have different political systems, because you have different legal systems, you will also have additional considerations whenever you are assessing the workforce in those countries. So some of the things that we need to review, one of them being individualism versus collectivism. And in some parts of the world, the individual is the most important entity, where in other parts of the world, the group is more important than the individual. Again, that comes back to the cultural norms and the way in which you can quickly identify that if you're entering into a new market is to hire someone from that particular market and has a deep understanding of the people within that market, so you can build a strong workforce. Okay. So the next thing we need to review is the high versus low power distance. And this is more for, are there different power struggles in different parts of the world? You know, in the US, there are certain roles that provide more power within an organization, where in other parts of the world that is not that important. Right now, given that, going back to our assignments and discussing the metaverse, you know, we're going to be discussing decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, where there is no essentially no leadership role, and that the organization is ran by the people, right? Everyone is essentially on the same accord. So as we progress and we see more Gen Zs and more millennials, titles won't be as important in certain organizations, in certain industries, in certain parts of the world. You know, so so with you being if you are an HR leader in a technology based organization, if you are an HR leader within a blockchain based organization, you may hear reference to DAOs, or once again, decentralized autonomous organizations, where this power is not as important as traditional or conventional type leadership organizations, or leadership makeups, I should say. So the next consideration is masculinity versus femininity. And you know, you have to, in certain parts of the world, you have to say to what extent are traditional gender roles accepted. So in Saudi Arabia, for example, until recently, it was very rare that you've seen female leaders, right? So although you have seen an emergence in female leadership in certain parts of Saudi Arabia, in other parts, it still may be rare, right? So depending upon where you operate within Saudi Arabia, you have to look to see, you know, is this traditional male-based leadership within an organization still a norm? Okay. And then high versus low uncertainty avoidance. So in certain parts of the world, you know, certain organizations, certain business environments don't like to take risks. You know, in the US, in certain industries, you know, they have a high risk appetite. So that's another thing that you need to review as you expand at a global level. So the last thing we're going to review within this video is the different approaches, the different methods of bringing in leadership within organizations. So a few multinational companies rely mostly on expatriates, and you'll see expatriates normally within top management positions. So if I'm based in US and I'm going over to India, or if I'm going over to Australia, you will see expatriates from the US get sent over to a new facility in a different part of the world. Now, in my opinion, this is not the greatest approach, because as I said before, I want to hire within that country because that individual understands the cultural norms within that particular geographical region. I cannot stress that enough, because it's very important, and that is based on my experience as a management consultant. Okay, so in cases like this, where a US based organization would send over someone to India, to Australia, this is referred to ethnocentric, an ethnocentric approach to staffing, where the disadvantage is, as I said, they do not understand the cultural norms. Okay. Now, another approach that we see is that, a polycentric approach is where we're going to hire someone within India to run that Indian facility. Okay. Now, that individual will work closely with the US to understand the standards, to understand the policies and procedures of the US based organization. And then that individual will actually say, okay, yes, these are the policies and procedures in the US, but in India, we have these cultural norms, and your US based policies and procedures will not be applicable, or will not be well received within India. Okay. So we also have what we refer to as geocentric staffing, and geocentric staffing is another good approach, where you're going to find the best person to fill the job, regardless of where they are in the world. So a geocentric will always look at the global on a global scale, and they will hire the best person for that role. So this is done often with organizations that offer telecommuting. So if you have work from home and you can essentially work anywhere in the world, a geocentric approach would be a great approach. All right. So that's all we're going to review in this video, and until next time.